Hey everybody, and welcome to Old Roommates. Today on the show, Halloween, the original 1978 masterpiece. Stay tuned, grab your trick-or-treat bag, and get ready for a haunting good time. Just kidding, it's just us.
Alright, welcome back everyone. This is Old Roommates, the only podcast that takes a shallow dive in our revisits of 80s pop culture and 70s pop culture. So we're here today
through a middle-aged
lens. You know, I'm a little bit excited today.
I know, I am too.
We have our first ever special guest here with us today, Chris Bragle, who is a podcast extraordinaire and filmmaker. Chris, welcome.
Hello. Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Chris, tell us a little bit about your podcast, because it does tie into what we're going to be discussing today.
It does.
Yes, well, my podcast is called Alien Zoo. I'm about 17 episodes in, and every episode what I like to do is I like to pick a certain cryptid, which in terms of cryptozoology, a cryptid is an undiscovered animal, sort of like, Loch Ness Monster, Chupacabra, Mothman, Bigfoot, and each episode I take a deep dive into one specific cryptid and kind of give information, sightings that are available, what I think the cryptid may be if it is an already living animal. So, you just have fun with animals that may or may not exist.
It's super interesting, super fun. How can we find you?
Oh, you can find I'm on iTunes. I'm on iHeartRadio. I'm about to launch on Stitcher as well. So wherever you listen to podcasts, you can find Alien Zoo.
Awesome. And it's Alien Zoo. We can just search for Alien Zoo.
Just search for Alien Zoo, absolutely.
Perfect. It's really fun, you guys. I've listened to it. It's super fun. And
thank you.
You're great on it. Your voice alone is very soothing.
Wow. I appreciate that.
I do love that.
Thank you.
Love it. So I'm wondering if a boogeyman has been tackled yet. Would that be a cryptid? Cryptid. I'm sorry.
I've never heard that word in my life.
Cryptid?
Cryptid.
Yeah. It's, my most recent episode is on this cryptid called the Enfield Horror of Illinois, which is sort of like this mysterious, monstrous figure that's been cited a couple times. So I think as far as boogeymen go, that may be the closest that I've covered so far.
Wait,
that's
is that
super
real?
Interesting.
Is that what you're saying? That's real?
The Enfield Horror?
Yeah.
Yes.
Enfield Horror is a real thing. Okay.
It's,
I'm learning already.
And you said it was in Illinois.
Illinois, yeah.
Which is where Halloween takes place.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Haddonfield.
Look at that.
All the stars.
All the stars. This was not planned.
All the stars are aligning.
Magical podcasting in the making.
Sure is.
I think we gave you about, a week's notice? Yeah, 2 weeks' notice.
That's fantastic.
But so welcome to the show. This is really exciting. I think we're all going to learn a lot. And the focus today is Halloween, the John Carpenter film. And as we always start, and Chris, you're a smidge younger than us, so I think our perspectives will be different. Will be very exciting. But we always start with how we felt then. Christina, do you want to talk about how you felt when was the first time you saw this movie?
I have no idea. I do think I was young. It's so funny because I'm not a big fan of horror movies right now, but I do remember a time when I was younger, probably in my 20s, that I was a big fan, and it was probably when all of this Friday the 13th and Halloween and Nightmare on Elm Street and all that stuff was happening. I loved it, and I used to go to the movies to see it, and I can't imagine me doing that now. Mm-hmm. So it's so funny. It's just a totally different world. But I'm imagining I was probably in my 20s. I don't know that I saw it in the movies. I remember watching it on video, remembering it to be one of the scariest movies I think I've ever seen, and just loving that it was so scary. Mm-hmm. So that's where I was at. What about you, Brian?
Yeah, I mean, I think agreeing with a lot of what you said, but I think for me, would this make sense that I started on Channel 56? Because I remember watching
Creature Double Feature.
Well, in the sense of like, I remember it being consistently interrupted with commercials. So but here's the thing: I remember watching it young and being like grateful that there were commercials because it like brought me back to reality, and like, so meaning it was scary. This is not a bloody movie, right? And so it's like, I think there was probably very little editing out too, to be honest. I just remember watching it and being like scared, but then having this break of commercials. And I think it became one, because historically I'm a big wimp, and I don't really, if I'm watching a horror movie, I'm usually watching the bottom of the screen, not the I'm not usually watching the screen. But it's but even but it's, I think that was one of the first movies I watched the whole way through engrossed, because it does have that neighborhood feeling. It feels real, but then you have I had the commercial breaks, which saved me.
Yes. Yeah.
Chris, what about you?
Yeah.
Well, I remember this was one of the movie. I remember when my mother would take me to our local video store to pick out a VHS for the weekend. This was one that she would never let me get until the day she finally did, and I remember picking it out of. The case was very enthralling to me. It had the pumpkin with the knife, and that's it. And that's it. So you don't really know what it was, but I knew I wanted to watch it. So finally, I was about 11 or 12 years old. I wasn't alive when it came out in theaters. Unfortunately, I would have seen it in theaters. But I was about 11 or 12 when she finally let me rent it. And that was it. I saw it one time, and I fell in love with not only that movie or that style, but just slashers in general.
Sure.
And it really opened a huge doorway.
It's impressive that we were able to watch it, an R-rated movie at 12.
Yeah. I mean, I was pretty annoying about it.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds like she's kind of persistent. But had your mom seen it, and that's why she was like, no, this movie's not for you? Or she just assumed it's
I think it was
so?
I think just because it was a VHS tape in the horror section, she was kind of... I'm sure she may have seen it, but I don't think she remembered exactly what it was about. So just because it was in the horror section, she was kind of... And that it had the R rating. She was kind of like, well, why don't you pick something else this time? But finally, when I got to see it, I fell in love with it. I thought it was fantastic.
Awesome. So we're just going to dive right in. Chris, you mentioned your podcast deals with deep dives. We're all about shallow dives. So let's just jump into it. Christina, what jumped out at you?
So what jumped out at me was the style of the movie itself was so different than what I imagine horror movies to be. It was like, I think you had said earlier, maybe it was offline, that it wasn't very gory.
Right.
And it was very suspenseful. So it kind of blew my mind that there was a storyline. And
you're talking about now.
About now, yes. Watching it, I had forgotten all about the doctor who was like on his trail. This whole time, Loomis. I forgot about it, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I think I had like sort of this vision of it being just a typical horror movie that someone's just getting, a bunch of people are getting killed. And there was actually that storyline that he was in the mental institution, and I really liked the stalking aspect of it, and so much of it was during the day, and I appreciated that.
The version you saw, because I remember seeing this movie. I've seen it. So, truth be told, I've seen this movie a bunch of times. Okay. Like I said, it's one of my favorite horror movies. And there is the scene, and Chris, I don't know if you remember, but like there's this scene where Dr. Loomis goes to visit a young Michael in the asylum, I guess, and it's just this blonde kid staring out a window, and Dr. Loomis is talking to him, and he's not responding at all. And it's a short scene, but I think it was super important, and it's on the DVD I watched. That scene is not on there. But I remember...
It was not on the DVD that I saw. Is it
not on the VHS copy I saw either.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to think of where I saw it, that it had that clip in there.
Have you seen other versions of like Halloween 2, Halloween 3?
Yeah.
So maybe it was in a scene from Halloween 2.
How dare you? I know what I saw.
I don't know.
So
I don't know if you do.
But I remember that little nugget of a scene where he tries to connect with Michael, and Michael's just like this stone-faced boy.
Well, because he does talk about that to the police
right.
officer, how he tried to reach him for so many years, and then he just decided that he was unreachable and he was the devil or whatever.
Which is such an important monologue because there's a lot of like that sort of chunkier dialogue where he's like, "This isn't a man," when he's like he ate, I guess he ate part of a dog or something, right? In the
yeah, he knows how to drive a car, so that was kind of impressive.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of the scariest parts are in the daylight. I feel like there's never, and that stalking gimmick of like just having Michael Myers in the background, like as the camera pans out, it keeps the movie consistently suspenseful. Although there's not a whole lot of gore, there's not a whole lot of killing, but it's just like he's just omnipresent. He's just always there.
Oh yeah, yeah, and that's why he got the nickname as the Shape.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In the credits,
always there.
Yeah. What was your take on the stalking part of things?
Well, I thought it was interesting because in the beginning of the movie, when we see Michael as a boy, when he, kills his sister, spoiler alert. It's funny because it's a point of view shot, so it kind of gives the audience, it kind of puts the audience in Michael's shoes, and then so. Throughout the movie, as they're showing clips of Michael and they're showing him stalking, and it's and the camera's just following him. It's still the audience is going back to the time where they were Michael in the beginning. So I think that really works. And like I say, I'll always say this movie is the quintessential slasher film. This was out in '78. And then all the slasher movies that came out in the early to mid '80s, I think they all took from Halloween because it's so well done.
Yeah, and we talked about this with Friday the 13th, where it's like the point of view is you as the killer, and I'm not a fan of that. I know it's horror movies still use that device. I think it's like, but with Halloween, I felt that the scarier parts. One of the scariest parts for me is when the kids, Lori and the children are at the top of the staircase, and she's like, "It's okay," blah blah blah, and the kids are like, "But what is it? And she's like, "I killed him," and then suddenly he appears behind her, and you get the kids' point of view of him running, and like that to me is 10 times scarier than me being the villain. I feel like when you're at the point of view of the murderer, it's almost less scary. It's kind of disturbing.
Yeah.
It's very disturbing, and actually, it's funny because the first scene, you don't know right away that you're a child.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And all of a sudden, you're like, "Oh wait, I was a kid when I killed her." So that was a little interesting, and him standing in like the clown costume.
Yeah.
Like so
crazy.
Yeah. The parents are a little. If I'm
it was like
nitpicking the longest take.
The longest take of the two. The two of them just standing next to him, watching him standing there. Like,
the mother put her hands in her pockets.
Yeah.
You might want to have your hands at the ready if something like this happened.
No shit. It was a little like, "What'd you do now, Michael?" Like it's like he's standing at first of all the biggest knife in history,
right?
With like, it doesn't matter, but
it was a little interesting how that scene was the only scene in the movie of a bird's eye view shot. Everything else was very low to the ground, and I think that added another element of connection to the story, to the audience, where you're right there with them.
Yeah,
sure.
None of these crazy camera shots or anything.
Right,
yeah,
right.
Well, so much of the movie is walking, and I loved that. Like, I love one of my favorite scenes is. And it's not really the point of view because you see the back of Michael watching Lori walk down the street and she's like singing, "I wish I had you all alone, just the two of us." It is like he is. I love that scene because I just think it's beautifully shot, and I think it gives you that impression that like you could just be watched. You just don't even know.
Right.
Like think you're having a nice moment to yourself walking down the street singing a song when there's like a psycho killer 30 feet behind you. And I think there's that element. The movie does a really good job of like, oh yeah, you're not alone.
Right, and it gives it such a realistic point of view. And he's not necessarily a monster. He's actually a person who escaped from a mental institution. What's scarier than that? But it gives it's so realistic in that way. It's not just a weird, nightmare or something. It's actually like a real person who's, just stalking you. Mm-hmm. And I thought Jamie Lee Curtis was awesome in it.
Yes.
It was, I believe, her first movie.
I believe so.
It actually says introducing. Yeah. I meant to look it up and I didn't. I always want to do something. I never did. But I think that was her first acting gig. Everybody else in it was ridiculous. Like her friends were just so awful. Their
acting?
Oh, just, terrible. But she was great. And I think that she really makes so much of the movie because she's kind of notices right away, like this car is kind of following her, and she's the one that's sort of like us, kind of looking for him, noticing that there's like some strange man, and so I don't know. I thought she was really good, and it just made it very effective. I thought.
I'm going to say this is why the movie works, because Laurie is smart. Mm-hmm. Like, she actually is smart. She's responsible. Like, even little things, like the dad trusts her to leave the key under the mat for the real estate office. She sees Michael outside the classroom, right, and he's standing at the car, and she's like, this is freaky. But then the teacher asks her a question, and she nails it.
She nails it. I know.
That never happens.
So proud of her. I'm like, oh my gosh, she knows the answer.
Which never happens in movies. Like if you're daydreaming in class, you not only get the question wrong, the class typically laughs at the person in movies, right? It's like Laurie nails it. She, I wrote this a few notes about how that she is smart.
She's very smart, and actually to her detriment, because she liked a guy, and saying she can't get a date because she's too smart.
She opens the balcony door. I'm jumping all around. She opens the balcony door to trick Michael, hoping she thinks she jumped off the balcony of the house. She protects the kids first and foremost. She has an action plan for the kids at all times during this nightmare. She throws a plant at the window to get the attention of the kid because he's not hearing. She instantly calls the police. The line's dead.
Oh my gosh! And hello, and she runs out and she's screaming
on the top.
Help me! That you never see that in any other horror movies.
Thank
God, someone's finally screaming.
And she's banging on every fucking door, and that is what you would. That is what you would do. And
so well written in that.
When you watch, I feel like you watch so many horror movies, and you're like, no one would act that way. No, I would be screaming. I'd be banging every door.
She was acting the way you would.
It was something so kind of. Human and real and raw about the acting and that screaming. I mean,
I was so happy that she was screaming and yelling when she ran out of that house. I was like, thank God, finally, a victim with a brain.
Yeah, you just don't see that in this era of these horror movies made in the era of cell phones. You just don't see that screaming or anything. And they had to work around that, which they did a great job.
Yeah, they really did.
But it's always like that, the gasping for air. It's like, Michael? Or, I'm using all the wrong names. But it's like, Joey? Joey, is that you? It's like, no. It's like, Joey! It's like you scream. Yes. I think that, and I think she was nicknamed the Scream Queen, right? And back in the 70s. So I think so much of the success of the movie is because you just like her. Mm-hmm. She's smart, and she's doing things that I think that you would do.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Agreed.
So that was a lot of love. So Christine, you mentioned the acting. Was there anything else you were not that maybe didn't work for you?
So there was. All right. So number one. So there's two things that really jump out. One was, a couple of little things, like he's able to drive a car, if he's been locked up since he was, 8, when did he learn how to drive a car? But aside from that, having the kids, it made me very uneasy. Having kids in the movie for some reason. Just seeing, the little girl on the couch watching TV while her slutty girl, babysitter was washing clothes or something in a shack outside of the house. I didn't understand any of that.
I never heard of that before. Separate laundry house?
Never heard of that before. I'm like, why is she going outside? Oh, the laundry's outside? Like, okay. So that was kind of weird. But I didn't like the kids. Like, every time there was a kid in the scene, I'm like, oh, this is like making me very uncomfortable.
But did it bother you
I'm
then?
a mom with a child, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I don't really.
But did it bother you then?
No, I didn't think about it at all then.
Yeah. Well, you're also a teacher and you're a mom.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's fine.
And I knew they weren't going to get killed. Like, from seeing it before, I knew they weren't going to get killed. So it wasn't like I thought they were going to get killed. But I just didn't like seeing them in that situation. It was scary. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
I will say what I did like about the children in the movie were the kids seemed to be the only ones who, if they saw the quote-unquote boogeyman or something creepy, they would call it out. I feel like all the other characters were so nonchalant about hearing or seeing something creepy, and then they just chalked it up to, oh, it's one of my friends playing a prank on me.
Oh, true.
You know,
that's
and then
great.
The kids, they actually
called it out. So you almost needed
out.
that element of that.
I feel a little bit, yeah.
Sure.
I think so.
That makes perfect sense. The other part that I thought was just, I laughed.
Okay.
He kills the boyfriend, comes upstairs, and she's...
Yeah.
Oh, did you get my beer?
Mm-hmm.
And he's wearing a sheet.
With glasses.
With glasses!
Yeah.
I don't understand why this is necessary. He's already wearing a mask.
Yeah.
Is he that? Like, I don't understand. Like, was he really just trying to, like, trick her? Like, he put a sheet over his head. Like, he looked foolish. He looked absolutely foolish. It wasn't scary at all. I don't know if it was supposed to be comic relief, but it certainly was for me. And I don't know, this might be a good time to mention the mask. Did you know what that mask is?
Yeah, William Shatner.
It's a William Shatner mask. Isn't that so fun?
Yeah.
So, but I felt like he's already wearing a mask. I think it would have been so much more effective if he had come up the stairs wearing his mask with a knife in his hand and her sitting here going, oh, you're funny, you're so silly, you're trying to scare me. It's Halloween. It would have been very appropriate for him to do something like that. Right? Yeah. So I just thought that was so silly.
I wrote that. I think it was, Chris, I want your take on that too. I do think it was comic relief. Yeah. It was so random, it's so bizarre. And like, would a little kid, I mean, because that really suggests a sense of humor. Like, to put the glasses over the sheet, and it's such a sort of major moment in the movie because I don't know, because it's like she will get the tombstone there. I mean, it's a lot of planning. It's a lot of
lots of planning.
And next to the tombstone on the table was a lit pumpkin that he supposedly put there too.
Yeah, so he was doing some decorating. Really quick, the little girl, just because if anyone, I want people to know that we know this, is Kyle Richards, who is a Real Housewife of Beverly Hills.
Oh, really?
Did you know this?
I did not know that.
You know what's funny? I actually saw the name in the credits, but I forgot about the name.
Yes, and I heard that she might be asked to be in, because they rebooted it last year.
2018.
In 2018, and they're going to bring her back. I think it's the same character years later. Okay.
Interesting.
Not that she had a lot to do, but it's funny. I mean, she
She just watched TV and ignored her babysitter. Yes,
she did.
Well, I think she answered the phone once.
Chris, in terms of your Enfield?
Enfield horror.
Yeah. How does this ladder up in any way, shape, or form? Did this movie resonate with you a little differently, knowing what you know?
Well, I mean, I will say the way this was different from this time watching was that this movie, this Halloween movie, I've seen it so many times, and it's so embedded in my mind as a great film. It has been a couple of years since I've seen it, so once I saw it again, it wasn't as good as I thought it was. I remember it being much better, and like you said, the comical scenes that kind of may not have been...
Are you allergic to cats?
I'm not. No.
Okay, all right.
That may have not have been purposely comical that I found funny. It was a weird feeling watching it the most recent time I did. But as far as comparisons to the Enfield horror, I think the only comparison that I could see is that, the nickname for Michael Myers in this movie is The Shape, and the Enfield horror in my most recent episode of Alien Zoo it's a supposed 3-legged creature.
Oh.
That kind of... So, I mean, again, with the shape, it's a 3-legged creature isn't really a known animal right now.
Right.
But I don't know. That's a difficult question.
Do you feel like you watched it differently knowing that you were going to be on this podcast? Like, were you looking at it from more of a critical view?
Well, I'll tell you something funny about that. Ever since 2011, when I went to film school, I've been watching films differently, and I hate it. Because going to film school, they teach you a different way of analyzing film, so it's hard to just sit and enjoy a movie when I watch it. So I was constantly analyzing everything in the scenes. I couldn't focus. Like, I'm a person who always has subtitles on the TV. Yeah. Like, I just always have it just so I can read it. And
sure.
Me too.
I love it. And I don't know. I couldn't focus on what I focused on when I first saw this when I was 12.
Sure.
So it was a very different way of watching, and I disliked it.
Oh my god!
This time more than I did, the first previous time I saw it.
Interesting.
Chris, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
You can go. No, I think what we've learned here is that school is bad. And
don't go to
don't go to school.
Do not go to film school.
Don't go to school at all. It's actually funny. My friend, I won't say her name, but she is a proofreader, and she can't read. Like, she used to love reading like Stephen King or like Game of Thrones. She's like, I can't read. Like, she really struggles with enjoying a book for that reason. Like, she can't read without proofreading because it's like a lot of run-on sentences and like little just bad writing. And it's interesting. It's like you almost know. You know better, like you know too much, and it prevents you from really enjoying stuff.
With me being a parent, it's really difficult because as a preschool teacher, you just see how bad kids are. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's totally fine.
So I have some other thoughts. You mentioned the acting of her friends, Annie in particular.
Annie.
But Annie's the one with the black curly hair.
Yes.
But is she, beyond a good actress, is she even a good friend? Like, she's late. The first time you meet her, she's like 15 minutes late. She doesn't apologize. She's sarcastic. Well, there's no crime in that. But she mocks her friend's fears. Her friend tells her she's being stalked, and she blows it off. I just feel like I don't know if they gave Lori, like, a good support system.
No, should they drop all the kids off at her house to watch them so she can have what I imagine to be a gangbang? Because they showed up and they're like, oh, I'm going to rip your clothes off and then you're going to rip my clothes off and then we're going to rip Annie's clothes off. I'm like, what is happening?
Yeah.
Is Annie aware of this is happening?
I'll tell you though, I thought, well, I shouldn't say that. I thought he said Lindsay. And I was like, wait, what? But did they say he said?
I don't know. They might have said Lindsay. No,
because Lindsay's the little girl.
You know what's so funny? Because I wrote down Lindsay, and I'm like, no, Lindsay's the.
That's what I think
child.
He said.
So I crossed it up. We have to rewatch.
We do have to watch that scene because that's really disturbing.
It was obviously a mistake because Lindsay was a child, but I wrote it down, and then I'm like, no, they couldn't have said it. And I just scrolled.
It was the 70s. It was the 70s.
Free love.
Let's see. Okay.
Well, one quick thing to that. I'm sorry. If Lori had more responsible friends, I think there'd be more survivors in the film.
I would think so.
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, both her friends were so nonchalant about, Michael Myers dressed as that with a goofy ghost there, and then the noises that were in the laundry room. So they were doomed to die.
Do you watch a lot of horror movies?
I do. I do.
Has there ever been a horror movie where it's just super scary, but no one actually dies?
Interesting.
What if everyone in this movie, because there's really only, is there 4 murders?
There are.
And there's 4.
Well, the nurse.
Oh, the guy. No, the nurse doesn't die.
No, in the car. Oh, that's right. She doesn't die. You're right.
The sister. So he kills the sister. He kills the guy who drove the truck. Then he kills the 3. The 2 friends and the boyfriend. You see the cat hair? Sorry, my cat is with us, and the cat hair is flying everywhere. But I think
5.
That's it.
Yeah,
I think you're right. Yeah,
he killed 5 people. But I wonder, but I do wonder. It's not so many. And I also, I did struggle with this too. So he does murder his sister.
Yes.
And I wish that's why that scene that you guys don't remember or never saw, where he like goes to interview him in the as a little kid. It's like he kills his sister. He's a young kid. He's disturbed. But so like Loomis's dialogue is like, he's not a man. He's an animal, or he's he got hungry, and
he calls
I saw evil. Devil's eyes. He is purely and simply evil. Does one murder like a devil make? Because I feel like without that other scene, it's like, is Loomis being a little dramatic?
Mm-hmm. Well, he was definitely dramatic. The other part about him, which was so funny, was nobody really cared. Did you ever notice that? Like, he's calling, like, the mental institution. He's talking to people at the mental institution. He's calling, like, the police. Nobody cares. The mental patient escaped. No one cares.
The sheriff knows he has a gun. He's carrying a gun the entire time.
Yeah.
It was just so funny. I'm like, why isn't anybody caring?
I kept forgetting he was a doctor. I kept thinking like, only when he took the gun out, when the thing smashed against the window at just the right time. The cop was like, it's like, I have a permit for this, blah, 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 blah. Right. But I was like, oh shit, I keep forgetting that is a bit extreme for a psychiatrist to carry a gun.
Right. One other... I'm sorry, were you finished with your...
No, yeah, I was done.
I apologize if I cut you off. One other thing that I just thought of that I wanted to mention was the whole movie, I'm watching it, and I will tell you, I never saw any of the other Halloweens. I only saw the first one. And one of the things that was a little bit confusing to me was why he focused on her. And I know that there was the one scene where he is in the house and she comes to the door and drops the key off and then leaves. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of from that point on he starts stalking her. But it seemed like there should have been a better reason for him to stalk her. And I'm like, did I miss something? And I ended up looking up a little bit about it. And apparently, you probably know this, in Halloween 2, it's revealed that it's his sister. Mm-hmm. And I felt it would have been just a much tighter story if they had revealed that earlier on in the first Halloween. If you knew halfway through the movie, or even at the beginning, that he's sister, or maybe the end probably would be best, that it was actually his sister, and that's why he was stalking her the whole time. So that was one criticism. I was so happy to hear, to read about it. I'm like, oh, that's perfect. Yeah. But it would have been so much better.
There's between the first movie and the second movie, it's one film.
Oh, okay.
So the second movie takes place right where the first one left off.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So, and then that's when you learn. But yeah, I do agree that this being a standalone film, I think it would have been nice if they mentioned that or kind of hinted to that a little bit more. It would have added another little layer of depth.
It is pretty, I have my notes too, it's pretty indiscriminate. It's like, well, I guess he's a serial killer, he's just going to fixate and kill because that's what happened, and maybe she went up to the house. But that is a good point. It's funny, did anyone see the new, or the one that was out, I guess, over a year ago now? The
one that she
with Jamie Lee Curtis. Yeah. So there's a line that is, because they basically pretend that the second film through the other 8 films that followed never happened. Oh. So the 2018 one truly only deals with Halloween 1, this idea that Michael Myers was captured and put in an insane asylum, or jail, maximum security, all this kind of stuff, and that Laurie went into hiding in the woods, and she built this fortress for herself because she lived in fear. She has PTSD extreme, but there's a line that says, "Oh, that was just a rumor. That's not his sister." There were so many rumors, and what they do is they kind of reference other older movies.
Interesting.
But so allegedly that's not the case. But if that's the way they were going to go, I completely agree. It would be why is he going after her so hard?
He seemed very fixated just on her.
Yeah. But then also on the friends, it's was it because the Annie yelled, "Hey, creep," while he was driving, he slammed his brakes on. It's but I mean, he is. But I think maybe that's part of it. It's are we trying to understand a murderer?
Right. I mean, he's unstable.
When I was a kid, I don't think I was wondering that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. When I was little, I don't think, or younger, I don't think I was why is he so mean to her? It's like, well, he's a killer.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Why is he just stalking her? So maybe it's time for a break?
I think so.
Anybody feeling that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, let's take a quick break. We'll be right back. Hey there, it's Brian and Christina. We just wanted to take this break to thank you for listening to Old Roommates, the only podcast that revisits pulp culture through a middle-aged lens. Please subscribe to Old Roommates on iTunes, Spotify, and wherever you listen to podcasts. And give us a rating or review while you're there.
And if you have any questions, comments, or observations, shoot us an email at oldroommatespod@gmail.com. And follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Old Roommates. Thanks for listening, and now, back to the show. And we're back. Good break, guys. What do you think?
Break, yes.
Very good break.
Sorry, just putting my cat down.
Oh, that didn't sound good. So we have, I have a couple notes that I noticed that I needed to bring out.
Yes.
So let's see, where do I want to start? So there's a couple of criticisms. The doctor, he's standing in the bushes for hours, and then he notices the car. Did you notice that? He's standing in the bushes for hours waiting for Michael to come home.
Yeah.
And then something made him like turn around and notices the car sitting there. It just seemed like he probably would have noticed it beforehand.
Interesting, yeah.
Especially if he's looking, I mean, is he literally just staring at the house like he's not looking over his shoulder or anything?
I didn't catch that.
I noticed it right away. I'm like, oh my gosh, seriously?
Well, he's having too much fun yelling at those kids through the bushes.
He was having, oh my gosh, how funny was that, right? Oh
that was that. Let him have a moment of joy, you
my
guys.
gosh, seriously. Another part that I noticed is the couple who wanted the gangbang with Lindsay or Annie, we're not sure who. They walk in the house, and they even mention, they're like, it's so dark. It's totally dark.
Yeah.
Yet they walked right by a light switch. There was a light switch right next to them as they were walking in, and they never even tried to put the lights on or anything.
Interesting.
Oh, that's weird.
It was weird. And I was almost expecting them to try it and have like electricity off, but then they walked into the other room and there was a light on.
Yeah.
Oh.
So it was just funny that they mentioned it was dark and never
yeah.
even tried to find a light switch, which was right by the door. The one spot I would check.
Very observant.
And then the other thing I wanted to mention is the murder that's in the kitchen. So he's lifting the guy up. He's strangling the guy, struggling. He takes out his knife.
Yeah.
Whoop, and that's it. One swipe of the knife.
Yeah.
Sticks to the wall.
Yeah.
The guy never moves again. Like, that's it. Like, there's no more struggling.
Yeah.
And he's just, like, stuck to the wall.
Yeah.
Like, wouldn't there be, like, a little bit more struggling? I don't know. It was just sort of
I thought about that as too, but
yeah.
to ease myself into what just happened, I was thinking, oh, maybe the knife went all the way through. Maybe it severed his spinal cord or something.
Okay.
Or
take it.
pierced his heart.
I'll take
or
it.
something, you know.
The power of positive thinking.
And then, thank goodness, the next scene he was in a sheet. Just made me forget all about that.
Right.
But also, he was being strangled.
He was being strangled.
My thought was that he was just choked out and then stabbed right into the board. But my thing is, but any of those things, and we talked about this Friday the 13th too. Like, he just gets stabbed and he just sticks. Like, it's like, why wouldn't the door fall over? Or if it's a cabinet door. It's like, or whatever it is.
It was so funny, though. It
He doesn't even slouch over.
It always strikes me, I feel like you could actually, aside from a boob here and there, I think you could show that movie on network television today.
Yeah.
Without really cutting it, except with the nudity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no gore.
No.
It's not violent.
No.
It's just very suspenseful.
I think if they took out the topless scenes, and then one other scene, I think they would have to take out, which actually I think we mentioned that there were 5 total victims in this movie. There were actually, I was going back and I believe there are 6 because I think Mike Myers, I think he killed that German Shepherd that attacked us as well.
Yes.
And also if you take that scene out, it would be capable.
Yes.
Yeah.
Truly.
And even that little, was slow motion. Like, the dog just kind of, slinks down. So you know it's...
Yeah.
Oh, the poor dog.
Yeah. Is that all of your
That's
thought?
it. And I have one more final thought, unless you guys have anything else to add.
Well, I do. I wasn't sure if Chris...
Go ahead. Why don't you go ahead?
I have one, and then we'll go to Chris.
Okay.
And it's the only thing... Now, I love this movie. I still love it even now. I loved it even when I had to look at it through my middle-aged lens, so to speak. But but the one thing that, as time goes on, I find funnier, and I really like... In the beginning, there's like this reliance on the sound when Michael Myers appears, and it happens in the station wagon when he jumps on top of the car, and it's like, right?
Yes.
I'm telling you, it is not dissimilar from, remember when the Brady Bunch went to Hawaii, and there was the cursed tiki necklace?
The spider and everything.
Anytime, like this, they showed the spider, or like they showed the tiki necklace and went, bing, and I don't know why. I just laugh. And I do, and I laugh. And when Michael Myers was like, Carl and I watched this last night, and I laughed.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. When it was like, there he goes. It's like, bing, it's like, okay. It's almost a little Charlie's, it's like that 70s thing.
Yeah, it's
like
definitely
little
a 70s
Charlie's
thing.
Angels, like, diddle, diddle, diddle. Yeah.
Yes.
It's a strange sound.
That's so
It sure
funny.
is, yeah.
So true.
Chris.
It's funny you mentioned that, Brian, because my last note is on the soundtrack. And I thought, I just always think, from the first time I watched it, I remember being enthralled by the music coming out of this movie, and I just absolutely love the soundtrack. And I think this would be a much different movie with anything else played behind it, any other type of music. I think the music really helps the audience with the emotions you're supposed to feel during the movie. I think the music is on key, and it's just perfectly placed within this film, and that was one of my favorite parts of this movie is the soundtrack. It's very minimal.
Sure.
It's very minimal.
Yeah.
And my last note that I was saving for last, unless you can speak after this, but I was so surprised. I loved the soundtrack as well, and I loved the minimalism of it. But I was so surprised. I was kind of expecting to hear throughout the whole thing.
Yeah.
And it doesn't appear until the very end. And I'm like, oh my gosh. It was so funny. We expected to hear it throughout the whole movie. It's not in the movie at all. Maybe at the very beginning.
The credits.
Yeah, the credits.
And at the very end, it's not in the movies at all.
That's right, yeah.
Oh my god.
And it shocked me. I envisioned it throughout the entire movie. Like every time he showed up, it would be that music, but it wasn't.
Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. This music that you familiarize yourself with Michael Myers, his theme music. It's funny that it is just bookend in this film.
He's not even in a scene with it. He's not even in a scene.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
And maybe it's different with the second, third, 18.
And in my mind, if I was in a trivia thing, I would lose because I would have been like, oh, it's played throughout.
Oh, absolutely.
Because that's what
I
you
would
think.
have
It's so
absolutely said that as
memorable
well.
that you just think you just instantly associate it.
And the soundtrack was just the director on a keyboard, just messing around.
Isn't that so fun? Oh my gosh, I love that.
Good stuff.
What else you got, Chris?
Anything else?
Anything else?
Honestly, I think that was it. I think I went through the rest of my stuff as we were talking.
Wow. So
Is
we
it
have
time for
exhausted Halloween.
We have, yeah.
Can't believe it.
Wow.
So, I think it's time for our game.
Yeah.
And we have an F, marry, kill for everyone to write down. And here are your choices. From Chris, I'm assuming you're familiar with this?
I think I am, yes.
Okay,
I think I am.
Perfect.
For listeners, it's three names, three people, characters. And you have to F one, shag one, well, whatever, marry one, and kill one.
Yes.
Right, here we go.
And if you're just learning this now, it means you haven't listened to any of our
That's
other
true. Listen to the other
podcasts.
ones.
So you need to catch up on our episodes. So, number one, Michael Myers. Number two, Jason Voorhees.
Oh.
He's Voorhees?
Yeah.
Voorhees, yeah.
Voorhees.
Thank you. And number three, Freddy Krueger.
Ugh.
Good
You
luck.
know where I thought you were going to go with this?
Where?
I think you're going to say Michael Myers.
And the two kids.
Kyle Richards. Kyle Richards then, Kyle Richards
Lindsay.
now. No, I thought you were going to say Michael Myers, Mike Myers.
Oh. Is there a third Mike Myers?
Who else is a Myers? Oh, there is another.
There's got to be another Myers. Anyway, that's not the way I went.
No, okay, fine.
Freddy, Jason, or Michael?
All right. Oh, this is so ridiculous.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Oh, Lord. Can we pick, like, specific movies? Because sometimes...
Sure.
All right, I'm done.
Actually...
I'm done.
I'm torn between two of them.
Oh, this is tough.
Okay,
I'm
fine.
I'm going with
my
my
original.
All right. Okay. Oh, God.
All right. Who wants to go first? Chris, you want to go first?
Sure, I will go first.
Okay.
With reasoning.
With reasoning?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so I would kill Freddy Krueger.
Okay.
Because he's a dream entity. And I want nothing to do with that. He can just pop up whenever. That's terrifying. He's not of this world. I would marry Michael Myers. Because I know he'll never cheat on me. Because he'll just stalk me until death do us part.
I love that.
And I would fuck Jason Voorhees. Because I feel he misses his mom and he just wants to cuddle. I think he'd be a good cuddler.
He probably would be a cuddler. You're right.
Ski mask on or off? Or hockey mask on or off? Sorry, not ski mask.
It would have... Hockey mask would have to be on. Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe I put a couple stickers on it.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yes, good stickers would be excellent.
Yes.
All right, very
Make a funny
interesting.
face on it.
Very interesting. Christina.
All
Or
right,
do you want to go?
I'll go next.
Okay.
So, I'm choosing to F Michael Myers.
Okay.
I don't really have a reasoning other than the other two. So he's kind of a default. I should have done him last, I suppose. So I would marry Freddy. And the reason is because he always had like a kind of a fun personality. Like he was funny, he had jokes. I could see like playing games with him and stuff. And I also feel like if we were married, we'd have like a relationship so he wouldn't kill me. Right? That's kind of my reasoning. I would think he wouldn't want to kill me if, we had a relationship. And I think he would be fun to hang out with. Aside from the murdering part of it. And I would kill Jason only for the reason that I think he was like a child. And I felt uncomfortable marrying or effing him.
Oh.
Wait. But Jason, but he grows up.
So the first movie, he was a child.
In the first movie, so that's kind of what I was looking at. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. So
yes, okay, yes.
Oh, yes, I will not F him from the first movie.
No, I know, and I feel uncomfortable saying that after you said you would.
So. Oh my God.
Different movies, folks. Different movies.
Yeah, Christina, we have the same answers. But
that's probably the first time ever.
I know this is the first time ever. But here's the thing. I think, so the reason why I would marry Freddy is because he talks. Like, I thought about the Labyrinth, Fuck, Marry, Kill, and you had mentioned that, well, he actually has conversations.
Yeah,
like, Hoggle, yeah. And, like, I think with Freddy's the same thing. First of all, I sleep horribly, usually. So, if Freddy loves me enough to marry me, he would maybe protect me in my dreams and help me sleep. And also, I agree. He talks, he's witty.
I remember
and
him
he
being
speaks.
funny.
Yeah. I mean, God bless, he's not the most attractive thing. But Michael Myers, I would F, because he isn't, he's probably the most human looking, and it seems like he's tall. I like tall guys. And then Jason, I would kill because I couldn't really trust him with my friends. I couldn't trust him, like, he'd probably kill them. I couldn't bring him on a camping trip. And he's not much of a swimmer. But it's like, and he just is, and he's really grotesque.
He's wrong.
Yeah.
Great.
Very good.
Good stuff.
Wow.
Good stuff. So, Chris, we want to thank you so much for
Thank you.
Thanks for having
joining
me.
us
It was a
on
lot
this
of fun.
adventure.
And
Your
you can
insight was amazing.
Listen to his podcast, Alien Zoo.
Alien
Yes.
Zoo,
Yep.
iTunes,
iTunes,
soon to be on
Stitcher.
Stitcher, and
Yeah.
all the way.
Anywhere else you listen to
Anywhere else.
your
And,
podcast.
I'm excited. I'm actually going to listen to that most recent episode
Enfield Horror.
on the Enfield
Yeah.
Horror. I'm really kind of intrigued by that.
It's an interesting story. It really is.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Hopefully you'll
Thanks
be
for
back.
having me. Absolutely. I'd love to come back.
Great.
Good
Perfect.
times, guys.
All right. Thanks so much. And that's it for Old Roommates.
Yeah. Thanks for listening. Please subscribe to Old Roommates on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and wherever you listen to podcasts. And give us a rating or review while you're there. And if you have an idea for the show, a suggestion, comment, email us at oldroommatespod@gmail.com.
And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Old Roommates. This is Christina.
And this is Brian.
Thanks again for listening. Till next time.